You know, as a society, I think we're on the brink of complete civilizational collapse. And that might seem like an extreme opening gambit for a video, but it's true. And I know it's true because I've looked at the Cody Ko videos. Now, I don't know if you've seen the Cody Ko videos, but what it is, it's this type of video on YouTube where someone looks at a computer and they might say something or make a face. And that's basically the top type of video out there.
That was weird.
I don't actually have a problem with Cody Ko. I have a lot of respect for Cody Ko. There's a small pocket of reaction YouTubers who've worked out that you can script this stuff ahead of time and turn it into an actual standalone piece of content. You know, you can do an hour of semi-prepared improv, underpay someone to edit that into 16-minute chunks, and that's $1 million career. Okay, so look at a joke and make a face. Let's see how that works.
This realistic rubber rock will
What?
really fool your friend.
Fuck, hang on, sorry, that was too early.
Realistic rubber rock will really fool your friend. But
Okay.
can it fool our mom? Rock,
Huh?
more like
What?
squinching.
What just happened? Shh. Was that a freaking joke or something? What is happening? Okay, so that's one. What else?
We're looking at TikTok. We may be banning TikTok. We may be doing...
I feel like this stuff isn't really aimed at me.
This is known as the death rattle, and when that happens, buckle up.
Well, I think I almost got that first one.
Rock, more like squinching.
Did she just say squingent? Yes. I mean, obviously, yes. Just pointing at something that's already funny and going, oh, that's funny, it's not really enough, is it? And anyway, that's not even like, that's obviously intentional. You don't end up with that by accident. Pretending that I don't understand so I can laugh along with their jokes and act like I've come up with them myself. You can cloak it in as much irony as you like, but it's still shit. And anyway, it's not even... What is this? This is a genuine piece of creativity. And what's this? This is nothing. Cody Ko is a man who rewatches kids' content made for children and appears to be genuinely amazed. It's a sad existence, a professional comedian unable to identify jokes aimed at children. I mean, not that, I understand why, it just makes the writing process easier if what you're looking at is already funny. They wouldn't be getting the views doing this, for example. This is of no value to anyone. Not that... I don't care. It is interesting that I can spend every night for 3 weeks writing this now, and this is all written, right? This is my most tightly written video. It looks like I've lost control of it now, but trust me, by the end it's got all these threads and they're gonna synthesize into a central point. Surely that little detour won't be important. Fuck you, it will be. It's interesting that I can spend every night for 3 weeks writing this now, and that's of no value to anyone. But Cody Ko can look at kids' content made for children, make a face, and that's worth millions. I don't know, just interesting, isn't it? And I mean, of course, they know what they're watching is intentionally funny. Of course, they know they just feign gullibility because that makes the writing process easier. And I don't think anyone's fooled by it. There's an unspoken agreement between you and Cody Ko that he's pretending to act out these emotions and you're pretending to believe it. Like gullible sheep to his ironic slaughter. You are being killed. But he's being quite sarcastic about it. But it doesn't matter, right? It's not that deep. They're just reaction videos, it's not that deep. But that's kind of my problem. I mean, mainstream entertainment has always been dumb, but I can't think of anything else where a requirement of enjoyment is to get more stupider. I don't actually have a problem with Cody Ko. I have a lot of respect for Cody Ko because it's not every day you hear about a rich kid parlaying their parents' wealth into a bullshit career. It's like a fucking fairy tale. In 2012, there was a guy who wanted to make an AI-based news app, but he struggled to get investors because it didn't seem too different to what Google were doing, and they were hemorrhaging money for a laugh. But he was able to get it running, and it was different. People flooded to it because this algorithm was so complex, it was pulling from so many data points, and they didn't give a shit about anything except for keeping people on the app. So it would constantly evolve, feeding you exactly what you needed to stay on the app, placing advertising exactly where it was optimal, and it got to the point where the average user was spending hours a day reading news. And if that's not sickening enough, it was mostly clickbait and entertainment news. So they took what they'd learned there and made the hub of kids' content for children, TikTok. And this algorithm, it doesn't just track everything you do on the app, it also harvests all the data it can from your phone and then scrapes all of your other apps. So it basically takes data collection to the extent that it is just malware. Traditionally, an algorithm like YouTube's tries to automatically identify topics of videos and topics you like, and it matches those up and sorts that by what's going to keep you on the app the longest. And that forms the basic feedback loop of all social media, right? You engage with content you like, you get more of that content shown to you. The innovation of TikTok is that it first tries to build a complete artificial model of you. And rather than showing you things like what you like, it shows you things that the model of you likes, sorted by what would keep the model of you on the app the longest. And this is a subtle difference, but it's an important one, because TikTok shows you things you don't know you like yet, sorted by what's the most exploitative. So the scary thing about TikTok isn't that they're selling your data to China. They're not in the business of doing that. The scary thing about TikTok is that if you use TikTok, it's shaping you and changing you for profit. Now, to be fair to Cody Ko, only about 1/3 of his content is TikTok based. We're halfway in, and it turns out the premise of the video doesn't hold up. From a creator's perspective, YouTube tasks you with creating light, mid-length, evergreen, topical content that will lead viewers down a rabbit hole at least once a week. And also it should be somewhat kid-friendly. All content should be, to a degree, made for children. Now that's a pretty difficult target to hit. I mean, I'm not even close. But it's much easier if you just leech off work someone else has done. I don't actually have a problem with Cody Ko. I have a lot of respect for Cody Ko, because even when he laughs along with kids' content made for children, he makes sure to have some sort of vague moral point at the end, and that justifies it. You know, he can go, this is a bad influence, so I'm just getting the message out there, and that justifies it. If you really cared, you wouldn't do that, would you? You wouldn't deal with bad actors on an individual basis. That's incredibly inefficient. If Cody Ko really cared, he'd use his skills to critique the system that's caused this exploitative children's content through a long-form satirical deconstruction. But he doesn't do that, does he? Why does Cody Ko want to subjugate children? But there's more to the popularity of reaction videos than just YouTube's algorithm or the creators. There's a social imperative to stay in touch with the world, right? It's this idea of shared common ground that everyone can access. You want to keep in touch with popular media in the same way that you might rework an anecdote to make yourself sound better. You're supposed to have seen The Queen's Gambit, because in a pinch, that can smooth over about 30 or 40 seconds of small talk. So a reaction video is a good way of staying in touch with content that isn't aimed at you without the bother of having to watch it. Now, in the 90s, some guy became absolutely livid about the VCR. He was so annoyed at the VCR that he invented a word, and he didn't call it a tapey like you would. He came up with interpassivity, the idea of reacting to something that should be interactive with passivity. People were recording things on their VCR and then not watching them. The VCR had essentially done the watching for them, so they didn't have to. And at this point, I thought, well, good. That is ludicrously hyper-specific. That's a word I'll never need to know. One less thing. But increasingly, our media is prescribing our reactions for us. Your critical engagement here really goes as far as whether or not you're going to press the like button. And the reaction video is just watching someone act out your emotions so you don't have to. Watching someone be critical so you don't have to. And watching someone watching so you don't have to. And I think that's the main reason for their popularity, right? It's just having someone act for you. Plus it's a way of staying in touch with the shared common ground, right? I haven't seen The Queen's Gambit. You know what? I'm sick of this. No one's seen The Queen's Gambit. The shared common ground doesn't exist. It hasn't existed for about 10 years. In 1977, there were 220 million people in the US and 200 million ticket sales to a movie called Star Wars. Now there's 330 million people in the US, and Avengers Endgame, the biggest cinematic experience of a generation, sold 90 million tickets. That's a drop from 90% of the population sharing an experience to 27%. First take of that. Not bad. Let's hope the numbers are right. So Sarah Cooper can build an entire comedy career out of mouthing along to videos of Trump, and this is baffling to everyone because what she's doing isn't adding any comedic value. You know, if she wanted to be actually funny, she should look at the videos and make a face. But she can be successful because there's millions of people stuck in a loop where what she's doing is appealing. And that's enough. You know, The Good Place was getting 3 million views, Cody Ko gets 2 million views, The Queen's Gambit's numbers are just obviously a lie, but everyone's dividing up into their own bubbles. There isn't any need to watch content that isn't aimed at you. Why leave your feedback loop? And when you spend every waking second getting yourself reflected back at yourself, it is absurd to see someone else. Media used to tell you how to be, but in an age of individualism, that's of no financial value. Thinking is replaced by feeling, moral lessons are replaced by emotional payoffs. The reaction video is positioned as critique, but we all know there's no critique going on. They're just a bit of light fun. They're almost comedy. 90 years ago, there was a guy who saw theatre become increasingly reliant on emotional manipulation. And this, to him, sucked ass. The audiences were manipulated to feel a certain way, and within that you could slip any ideology, so essentially all entertainment becomes propaganda. And the most successful propaganda is always emotional journeys that, you know, trick you into siding with an ideology. So he came up with a set of rules that would force the audience to engage critically. He'd draw attention to the construction of the theatrical process. He wouldn't portray characters as individuals, but as unstable, reactive figures in an unstable, reactive society, and he would alienate the audience. And this had the effect that even when they left, the audience would be more engaged with the world around them, rather than just brainwashed by whatever your specific messaging was. Then he fled Nazi Germany. Should have mentioned that earlier, not trying to say that what I'm doing here is equivalent to fighting the Nazis. That's for you to think about at home. Now, I've run the numbers, and about a third of you watch Cody Ko. Now, I don't have a problem with Cody Ko. I just said I did to annoy you. Even if I did, I wouldn't make fun of him specifically, would I? I'd critique the system that he's trapped in through a long-form satirical deconstruction. He doesn't do that, does he? We're all just functional pieces of the same interconnected system with no central control. See, all the threads are coming together now. I told you that little detour would be important, but by reflecting yourself back at yourself, the algorithms have trapped us in these imaginary bubbles where you don't have to think critically. You're purely individual, and change is not possible. And being emotionally manipulated makes you critically disengage. Having someone be critical for you makes you critically disengage, and getting more stupider makes you critically disengage, and watching only content that's aimed at you makes you critically disengage. Now, I did prepare a nice little outro for you. I say nice, you wouldn't have liked it, but you're gonna like this less.